Standing by, there is Ben Sheppard, Dr. Ben Sheppard. He's an academic fellow at the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, senior associate at the Institute of Alternative Futures in Washington, D.C. Mr. Sheppard, welcome to America's Radio News.
Afternoon.
All right, so let's talk about a report that came out today. James Clapper warning that there's an Iranian terrorist threat here on our own soil in the United States. We know that the Iranians were trying to assassinate a Saudi ambassador here on American soil. How seriously should we be taking this threat?
Well, the Director of National Intelligence is pulling together this assessment based on two parts. First of all, Iran's perceived greater boldness with its alleged attempted plot against Saudi ambassador last October. And secondly, the heightened tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, where Iran has, or some officials have said that they may be willing to close the Strait of Hormuz to trade. Now, with those two events together, there is kind of a perceived increased risk of this occurring. However, there's one key element to remember. For any state to conduct an attack against the U.S. will automatically produce a major response. So probably the only likely scenario we're likely to see a major event is where the West were to undertake military action directly against Iran under whatever scenario. Then Iran might then feel to counterattack Western countries, including the U.S.
So, I mean, but how likely or how easily could Iran really be able to do an attack on American soil? It seems like it wouldn't be very easy for them to pull off.
Well, it has limited capability in terms of what it can do in various areas. I mean, the plot against the Saudi ambassador last year illustrated that. What you could see is maybe attempted attacks against U.S. interests abroad, whether it be military installations or diplomatic posts like embassies. But I think at the moment it's quite unlikely we're going to see anything at present. I mean, the tensions will need to get up a lot far stronger for any real risk to actually occur. But nevertheless, it's prudent for intelligence agencies to keep an eye out and keep track of what Iran may be doing in this space.
Our guest is Dr. Ben Sheppard. He's an academic fellow at the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, senior associate at the Institute for Alternative Futures in Washington, D.C. here. Doctor, let's turn our attention now to Syria, another bad actor in the Middle East. Bashar al-Assad, does he actually survive this year as the dictator of that nation, or do you see the winds of change blowing in that part of the country as well? Or in that part of the world, I should say.
Yes, and Syria is probably going to be the most critical country for whichever way it turns this year. What we're seeing now is a gradual descent into civil war. However, the populace who are rising up don't necessarily have the same momentum behind them as you saw in Libya. And also to keep in mind that in Libya, the rebels had the air cover support from Western countries in the end, which was enough to tip the balance. So in Syria, it could go either way. I think the way that the cards are stacked at the moment is either going to be a stagnated traction of conflict, or it will start to swing back to Assad. I think at this stage to be talking of any major successful uprising is probably quite limited at present.
And with Russia pretty much siding with Syria, that's a pretty big factor here in empowering that, wouldn't you say?
Well, if you look at the context in terms of you've got Putin running for president of Russia this year, the elections are just coming up, and he wants to have Russia playing a bolder role. Russia felt they probably got a bit sidelined when it came to Libya last year, where the UN Council managed to pass resolutions which effectively granted them to provide air support against potential attacks for the rebels. For Syria, Russia is unlikely to get involved to say we'll be supportive of the rebels overthrowing Assad in any time soon.
All right, Dr. Ben Sheppard, academic fellow at the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, senior associate, I should say, at the Institute for Alternative Futures here in Washington, D.C. Sir, appreciate your time today on America's Radio News.